What is up, everybody? Hey, thanks to all of you for coming in and hanging out this evening. I appreciate it. I'm very, very excited to get this show on the road. This has been a long time coming, actually. As a lot of you know, I first opened my YouTube channel a year ago, a few weeks away from a year now, with that art drop I did late last June. And at that time, I told you guys that I had intended to do other art drops at some point and other types of different content. Of course, at the time, I was relying on my good pal, Kavi H, to be my tech guy. And, you know, unfortunately, as these things go, he's really, really busy with his own life. He's got his own things going on. And the way it turned out was that, like, he just didn't have the time to be able to dedicate to helping me out and doing any more programming. So I ultimately decided that, you know, like the old saying goes, if you want to get anything done, you're going to have to do it yourself. So after much delay over the last 4 to 6 weeks or so, I took it upon myself to basically go from knowing absolute nothing about streaming and streaming technology and just self-taught myself how to do this. And now I hope I'm doing things correctly. And the hope is that now that I don't have to rely on anybody to help me out with it on the tech side, my hope is that I can produce content all on my own. And it gives me the freedom to start producing more content of the kind that I want when I want. So that's it. And again, thank you very much. And before I introduce my two mystery guests, let me just say a really quick thank you to Kavi H for guidance and for the help that he gave me to getting me, you know, from being a know-nothing noob about this streaming stuff to being able to stream on my own now. So thanks, Kavi. I appreciate it, man. And lastly, thank you to Vivian, my wife. I love you so much. You've been the biggest supporter of anything I've ever wanted to do. And the entire time we've been together, and it's been 24 years now. And I love you for it. Thank you. And because my daughter is going to get jealous, Arwen, you are the true holy grail of my collection. So there you go. All right, guys. So without further ado, let's bring in our two guests. The first one is a collector of Incredible Hulk art, obviously. He also happens to be a dedicated figure collector who has at least, according to him, 500 unique Hulk figures, which is amazing because, as I told him, I never would have imagined in all the history of this character that the manufacturers could have produced that many figures. But very cool. And most importantly of all, he happens to be also, like me, a lifelong Beastie Boys fan. So without any further ado, please give a warm welcome to my buddy, Steve Yarish.
Hey, howdy, everybody. Hey, Ruben.
How's it going, man?
Good. Appreciate you inviting me to this. Looking forward to it.
I appreciate you being here. And my next guest also really doesn't need any introduction. And you guys, I'm assuming, have probably guessed who it might be. He is known to some of you as the Jade Giant. He's known to me as Dave W. and the Jade Giant. Collector also of Incredible Hulk artwork extraordinaire. Please welcome to the show, Dave W., the Jade Giant. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Ruben. Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. Yep.
So you guys doing all right, man?
Doing well.
Doing great.
Good. Appreciate it. So thank you again to both of you. I really, really, really do appreciate you guys being here, because when I got the idea actually for the show, and I thought to myself, initially I was going to do it by myself completely. And I thought, you know what? It might be a little bit more interesting and entertaining for the live viewers if I had somebody in studio with me, obviously, to, you know, comment and react. And of course, I thought, well, who would I bring in? And at first I thought, you know what? I probably have dozens of friends in the hobby. I could have just asked and said, yeah, come on, right? Because we know each other. Come on and react. Then I thought, you know what? It's probably more interesting to everybody, including me, if I got guys who also, like I used to be, are current Hulk collectors. And when I thought that, I said, you know what? The first two names that came to mind were you guys. So the fact that I asked you and both of you said yes, this couldn't have worked out any better for me. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And anybody else that thinks about Hulk collectors, think of us too.
Yeah.
me and this guy over here. Yeah.
Yeah, I should mention to everybody that when Dave and I were talking, and I asked Dave about coming on, you know, Dave said yes, but it was like a tentative yes, because he said yes, but I have a few questions. Naturally, I said, okay, sure. If you want, email me, or we can jump on a video chat and you can ask all the questions you want, and I can assuage any fears you may have. And of course,
no fears.
What's that?
No fears.
Hope you're okay. But of course, I was thinking, oh, these questions. He's going to want to know how long do you expect the show to go? Because maybe he's on a time schedule, you know, that kind of thing. And of course, Dave emails me, he gets back to me, he says, all right, so here are the questions. I need to know, is there any way, any possibility that I'm going to be able to get any of this art? Of course, like a true collector, right? I was like, what? That's what I should have known. That's what you wanted to know, right?
Wait a minute. I thought we each got one piece of artwork free for doing the show. Wasn't that?
Well, you know what? If any of the collectors who own these pieces that are out there are willing to watch the show and see that you said that and they want to send you a piece, they are very welcome to.
We will provide our addresses later.
Excellent. Yeah, so I thought that was funny, but anyways, that it was good for a laugh. But so I know the live chatters are there. Thank you guys for coming in. I will try to be with you shortly, but before we get to the art, I know you're all anxious to see it, just as I'm sure these two gentlemen are. And just so for those of you who don't know, both Dave and Steve have not been shown any of the pieces that I'm showing tonight.
Not that we didn't try.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be as much of a surprise to them as it is to you guys. And that'll make it more fun and interesting. But before we get to that, I just want to take a few minutes just to give both gentlemen an opportunity to let us know a little bit about themselves, in particular, what got them into collecting comic art, but perhaps more specifically, that focus on Incredible Hulk art. And with that, I'll let either of you gentlemen take the floor.
You want to go first, Dave?
Sure. I think we probably talked about this before, but I see some new names out there. I've been a lifelong comic collector, unlike everybody else that collected, even those that started early, like Rubén and others. I felt like, I wish I would have started earlier. I collected action figures, comics, statues, which ironically is where I met Steve, talking about statues online. And a few of us started buying art, sketches, mostly sketches and commissions early. I didn't have the gumption to go and spend the money for published stuff. And once I found art, it was kind of a slow shift initially up front, but that was about 2005, Chicago and New York conventions. And it just kind of grabbed me. I was always an art guy in high school. I did a lot of drawing, almost went to art school. Like a lot of us wanted to draw. And so the visual medium of comics is what appealed to me always first, story second. So yeah, easily. I can read a comic with great art and a bad story. I can't read a great story with bad art. I just jump out too quick. But that being said, I'm surprised I didn't find art earlier because it meant something to me from a pretty young age. But once I did, within a couple years, I pretty much stopped collecting everything else. Still in the margins a little bit, figures and other, miscellaneous stuff. But, most of what it was all around artwork. So been on CAF, I think since 2006 or so. And that's probably maybe around the time I started collecting. I know a lot of the guys in the group there. I've been on Bill's show, parts of a couple different groups, but yeah, I've known Steve for quite a long time. He and I talk all the time about art, other things, always chasing artwork. So if you have any art Hulk related you want to cut loose, reach out to Steve and I, and we'll make it happen.
Cool.
And thanks to everybody who said hello in the chats. I can't keep up with all of them, but I saw
there's
a few shout outs. So thank you.
All right, Steve.
Yeah.
I have been collecting comics since I was 5 years old. I still remember actually my mom giving me a nickel and walking down to the neighbor's garage sale and buying issue 170 of the Hulk comic book. And from there, I was a fan of the Hulk since that first issue. And I've collected the comics since then. And probably about 25 years ago or so, I just saw some ads for artwork. And that was back in the day when you had to mail away for a catalog to be mailed to you.
The good old days.
Available. Yeah. So my first page was actually a Herb Trimpe. I mean, I love all artwork, but again, I focus on Sal just because that was when I was growing up as a kid. It was really the Sal period. And that just reminds me of riding my bike for 3 miles to the convenience store, buying that issue right off the rack and seeing that, that story and that artwork for the first time. And it just, it's nostalgia and I just love it.
Cool. That was a very brief intro, Steve.
Sorry. I want to see the artwork.
Steve's kind of like my Hulk mentor because when I met Steve, he already had a website. He had a Hulk website back in the 90s. And I remember, talking to him a lot about the Hulk through the years. And he's like, you got to do a site. You got to do a site. It took me like 10 years and I finally did one. He's also was way ahead of me on art. So I've kind of followed his example a little bit in Hulk collecting, at least from an art perspective. So
at one point, if anyone remembers, I used to own IncredibleHulk.com for about 10, 12 years. That was my site as a fan site. And that's a whole story. That's a whole episode all to itself. So
important point of that story is he got free art from Marvel out of it. So yeah, it's a good story for another time.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever gotten free art. Actually I had a friend like 20 some odd years back. He's nice enough to give me, he gifted me a David Mazzucchelli Daredevil page.
Oh, nice.
Right. Of course, back in the day, of course I really appreciated it because it was unsolicited. Back then it was, an $85 page or something. It wasn't worth much. But when you think of it now, it's like, oh my God, hey, that's pretty cool. A Dave Mazzucchelli page for free. Not that it wasn't cool back then, but but other than that, I wasn't very lucky in getting free stuff all the time, so better for you.
Well, I mean, this is what I tell my kids. If you don't ask, the answer is always no.
You don't get. Yeah. Excellent. All right, everyone. So I guess that brings us to the part that you all have been waiting for and want to get to. So without further ado, let us get to the first piece of art, shall we?
Let's do it.
All right. So this first one I'm going to bring up is taking us back somewhat.
Wow.
To the Silver Age.
That's really nice.
Yeah, this is something. Oh my gosh. It's funny because when I sold my collection, this is one of the few I held on to for like a few extra years. And then ultimately I traded it away to Ted Latner, who, by the way, still has it, although he doesn't share it. But he gave me permission to let people know that it was him who has it. Don't know why, because now Dave's going to hassle him to try to get it, But
I know Ted well. We talk all the time. I actually messaged him today about a piece he just posted, and he had literally by minutes beat me to it. So
that's funny.
It's not uncommon for us to get art that the other likes quite a bit. So
what's interesting is that the art is actually different than the actual published page with the Abomination's face there too.
Let me see. How do you? Oh, yeah. On the exactly the second to last panel. Yeah, exactly. And sorry, go ahead.
No, I love transformation pages, so I try to get as many Hulk transformation pages as possible. But this is the Abomination, so that's even cooler.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, obviously you can tell by how the change was made, that at some point there had to have been a tiny little, they drew the abomination face on a separate piece of paper, cut it out and stuck it onto the original art. But somewhere along the way, I guess it must have just fallen off or been maybe pulled off by whoever owned it before me, But yeah, I never had that face. So
no, it's a great face too, though, from the original.
That's a great looking page, and Abomination's one of the Hulk's best villains. So getting an early page like that was big. I think Ted's had that one. He got that from you. You said, yeah.
I don't know for sure, but memory on that one is a bit hazy. I think it goes back to 2008 is what I want to say. That's when because most of the collection was gone by 2005. And in 2008, I think it was a few more years I held on to that one, and then we made the trade, and yeah, he's had it ever since. So yeah, it's cool. And I will say I don't regret much in this hobby. I honestly don't. But in the years since I parted with that one, I thought about it a lot. So I don't know if that's because I'm regretting it, but yeah, I've thought about it ever since because, for obvious reasons, it's a great page, and it's key because it's a first appearance, and not only first appearance, but in Jordan's parlance, it's a birth page. And I believe it was twice up, although maybe not. It's been so long, I don't even remember. But yeah, he was, by the way, he was my favorite villain out of all the Hulk villains too, right? So that kind of made it a little extra special. Probably the reason I hung on to it a little bit longer. But that was one that I wished I could have, maybe not traded away, but whatever, that's
so you said you traded it away. Memory test. What did you get for it?
Yeah, well, you guys are all gonna.
If it's not Hulk, Ted got you. That's all I'm gonna say.
No, Ted's gonna. Of course, he's gonna have to. He's gonna have to defend the trade. In retrospect, to all you guys, it's gonna seem like, what the hell are you doing? Because what I got was of no interest to probably 99% of the audience, including you guys. So at the time, I had already been a strip art collector for 7-8 years. And I was looking for a Johnny Comet by Frank Frazetta. Right. And so I looked around for one, but I wanted one that had a female on it. It's all about good girl art for me. Otherwise, I wasn't interested. And in those days, they just didn't turn up on the market, right? Like they just didn't come up. The ones with the girls. Finally, I find one. I happen to notice on Ted's website. And I'm like, oh, okay, he's got a girl. Okay, it's a pretty nice one. They don't come up. I'm like, damn, you know what? I've enjoyed the Abomination for a long time already. I think I'm ready to part with it. You know how things are when you're suddenly interested in something new. It's new and exciting. So you're more interested in that at that time. And so I was like, yeah, I think I'm ready to part with it. So the things being equal, the two pieces were not of equal value. So something fell here. I ended up having to get another piece from him, to even it all out. But in the end, that was the main piece. And that's what we did. And I still have the Johnny Comet strip, of course, so it's cool. And I still love it. The only thing that sucks for me is that a year or two after we did the trade, all of a sudden the floodgates opened. And tons of Johnny Comet examples with hot women, GGA examples, were coming on the market better than the one I have. So I was like, because obviously, had we just not done that transaction and waited a little longer, I may have just bought the Johnny Comet strip for cash and still had the Abomination page, right? But whatever, things go the way they go. And at the time, it was a fine trade. We're both happy, so.
Well, you lost me. Sure. You lost me at I traded away Hulk art and didn't get Hulk art back. I can't. that doesn't compute with me. So,
what do you want me to tell you? All right, so that's enough of that little story. Let's get to the art again. Let's go on to our second piece. Since I started with a Silver Age piece, I figured we're going to jump way ahead to a much more modern piece, and that is from Mark Texeira from the Hulk 2000 annual. And if I'm not mistaken, I think one of you guys might have art from this annual. Is that right?
I do. I have the DPS from this one.
Oh yeah, that's right. You got that. Yeah. There's actually more than one DPS, but yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
I've got the good one. So
yeah.
at least you're right. There's a lot of good art in that issue.
Right.
The inks were amazing. Really, really well done.
Of course, there was a little bit of stuff with the story in it too. Of course,
There's what? Say again. I didn't hear that.
There's a little bit of controversy with the story for this annual.
Oh, you know what? I never read it. So what's the controversy?
It was the Hulk, and the She-Hulk was in it, and it was implied he wanted to have a baby with the She-Hulk. It was really kind of strange. Artwork was great. Story was a little different.
Sorry, who was going to have a
The
baby?
Hulk and She-Hulk, even though they're cousins.
Family?
Yeah. So.
Whoa.
Yeah. But the artwork is great for it. It is great.
Wow, that's like, I'm shocked that I never even, you would think a story like that would have gotten some kind of crazy, online news attention in the years since, but I've never even heard of that.
It was 2000. The internet wasn't full of crazy people like that, like it is now. So it really didn't get much of a story.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
That's a great splash. You don't get to see the full Hulk, but you get enough of the shadowing, and it looks pretty cool.
Yeah, somebody else got one of these pages from this somewhat recently, and I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember who got it. It's probably Ted if it's from the 90s. That's kind of his focus. But yeah, I've seen some of this pop up recently, but not this particular page. I don't think I've ever seen the original art for this one, so this is a first.
No,
right. Yeah. Yeah. So I took a look. I took another look at the collection, a closer look, and it turns out that I could say it's closer to probably around 2/3 of it, from the best I can tell, is not been on CAF. At least not in I don't know, whatever. It has not been posted somewhere in like 20 years or whatever it is,
Which I just find is amazing. There's all this artwork out there that no one's seen the light of day in, 15, 20 years.
So I'm going to ask a blanket question here, Ruben. For each of these pieces, we got to know if you remember if you traded it, if you sold it. Obviously, you didn't get anything back, but if you traded it, I can tell you. I can tell you. You don't even have to ask me every time. I can tell you right now. Although I did trade the Abomination, I gotta say, to the best of my knowledge, I probably just straight out sold everything else.
And how did you sell? How did you sell it?
Oh, okay. Well, so there was a chunk of it. It's been so long, I can't even tell you how many pieces that chunk consisted of. But at the time, and keep in mind, the stuff was much cheaper back then. At the time, it was probably something like I want to say a $30,000 or $40,000 deal, and I sold that to one person. And then the rest of it, so there was a private deal. And then the rest of it, I just sold through my website as kind of like an art drop, and there might have been a few pieces where I just kind of contacted some guy and who I thought might have, wanted it or whatever. And we did a deal. But yeah, most of it, I would say through the website, like an art drop kind of thing.
Interesting.
Cool.
So the big deal that you did was the one collector that bought a big.
So yeah, because I know you're looking for any lead possible. I can tell you, I don't have a problem saying it. That
where I was going to go, Ruben, is that big sale, if it went to one guy, is that all of that in that 2/3 that never made it back onto CAF? So it's probably sitting in a black hole or semi-black hole. Yeah.
No. See, this is the thing. So let me address that. So I can tell you without reservation, there's no reason to not admit it. It's been a long time anyways. At the time, the person I sold that to, it wasn't even I don't consider him a collector, a dealer collector, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
As far as I know, people say whatever they want to say at the time. As far as I know, it was inventory for resale. Okay. And now if you're wondering, well, why would you do that? It was simply because I'm not an idiot. I got my asking prices, my retail asking prices for it anyways. There was no discount because you're buying this, giving me 30 or 40 grand or whatever. So it was the same as selling it at FMV to a collector.
Right.
But it was to a guy I consider a dealer primarily. And I can tell you, there's no problem telling you. It was to Joe Maddalena of Profiles in History.
Okay.
Okay. And the only other thing I can say to that is that, you know, he typically only set up in San Diego. And so I would assume after making that deal that he must have put it out at his booth in the following San Diego, the one after, so on and so forth. But I assume, I don't know. I actually stopped going to San Diego myself, I think that year or the year following that transaction. So
the follow-up question to the two guys that you invited to this show that are sitting here scratching our heads saying, why would you get rid of a great Hulk collection? Right. So what made you go and, you know, secretly buy all this artwork? What was kind of the thought process, motivation to kind of secretly buy it just to have it for a while and then let it go? Right.
Yeah. So
because I never really thought of you as like a Hulk guy. I mean,
right.
you kind of really broad in your taste, at least from what I can tell. You seem to be more artist focused. So it kind of just didn't really line up. So I was really curious to kind of hear maybe a little bit of that backstory.
Yeah, but don't forget though, like you the reason you've never really seen me as a Hulk guy though is probably because, I mean, I pretty much sort of stopped collecting it more or less at that time that you were kind of new in the hobby, right?
And you have a Captain America background, so.
what remind me, what was your sort of first year that you started buying Hulk art?
Probably 06 was probably one, and that was probably more sketches. I do have a story about a piece of art you and I talked about, but I'm going to wait and see if you post it.
Okay, we can get to it later.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. So that answers the question, because by the time you started, it was right. You came in at the tail end of me just moving the collection out. Let's get to the next piece, and then in a little bit, let's get back to the other question of why did you part with it, and I'll tell you that story later.
Yep. See some artwork.
All right. All right. So this time I'm going to stick to the modern era and show a piece from an artist I really, really love.
Yeah.
Very nice.
I don't know what you guys thought of this series, but I just want to make one thing clear to everybody, especially guys that are like Sal Buscema fans, who that was my guy, right?
And growing up, raised there. Yeah.
Okay. So that was my guy. And when I discovered the Garney series, man, I got to tell you, I could not believe, I was so blown away by the dynamism, the power that he infused into this series. I don't remember anything about the stories, I'll be honest. And that's not to say that it's necessarily, it might have been bad or whatever. I've always been, again, like we were saying, before, Dave, where you and I are always been more about the art, and so I forget stories pretty easily. But man, it's just the storytelling, power, dynamic images that he infused throughout the whole series. I thought, my gosh, this might even be better stuff. I might be liking this stuff even more than the Sal stuff I grew up with. I just felt it was that good.
It was great. I mean, I actually have the cover at issue 12 of this run, and which has the 4 Hulk personalities plus Bruce Banner on the cover. And I tracked down Ron Garney directly and bought it from him directly way back when, and because it was so cool. And Ron's artwork is great, and Ron is one of the artists. His artistic style has changed a lot over the years. I mean, it always looks cool, but it's changed a lot from now to his Berserker issue artwork. Much different, but it's still Ron. Still great artwork.
Yeah. And to that point, his style has changed, and he's finally starting to get a little bit more acclaim, probably that he deserved earlier on. And that's probably just a product of having a long, good career and keeping up with putting out really good art. Steve's point about he was digging and chasing stuff before I was, and he's got some great stories of stuff he dug out. I mean, even pre-internet. Of digging stuff out of collections. It's one thing that I early in my days learned from Steve is, to what he said before, is if you don't ask, you don't know, and get creative and finding stuff. So
part of the fun is the chase too.
Oh, I love the chase.
Find that artwork and you get it. It's just like a thrill.
Yeah, it's actually cool that you say that, Steve, because I'm gonna tie that in, the whole the thrill of the chase thing. That's gonna tie in as part of my little story that we'll do a little bit later about my ultimate decision to stop collecting and moving the collection out eventually. So
Yeah, you have to love the chase in this hobby. Unless you've got unlimited funds and you can just buy anything, everything's a factor of how much you like it and how much you're willing to spend. And so finding stuff that's not, been on a website, for a while is part of what you have to do.
yeah,
And if you don't enjoy it, you probably aren't going to last in the hobby too long. And
I
it's
know.
kind of,
I
it
know. I
takes
do.
work, right?
it
I do
does.
the
It takes a
stuff the
lot
other
of
night.
hours, a lot of
Yeah.
time, but
And I enjoy it. I mean, at least every other night when I'm winding down, I'm on the internet trying to dig stuff up. And I know Dave does the same thing. It's fun. I enjoy the chase.
Yeah,
yep.
That's.
And
I mean,
Steve and I, we chase stuff together. We've done deals
Yeah.
together on stuff.
Yeah.
It's we're there's when you have somebody in collecting hobby that you really trust and you can share stuff with, it's really good because it can help you to get stuff that way too.
Yeah, man, for sure. Brotherhood in this hobby, it's essential. I mean, I believe so. Friendship and brotherhood. I mean, it's all about unity. And when I mean, certainly if you've been in, more than just a year or two. I mean, you've been in a while. If you haven't figured out that, if you're serious about it and you're really wanting to be serious about hunting certain things down, if you haven't figured out that you can't just do it by yourself, then
You can't. I think you can. It's just not as fun and it's not as productive.
definitely
like-
not as fun. I'll agree to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when Dave will tell me, "Hey, I just dug up this Sal page. I just got it." I'm excited for him.
Oh, yeah,
'Cause I
absolutely.
get excited when he gets something cool too.
I wouldn't say there's never a little bit of jealousy, right? Steve
Yeah.
just got an amazing Magnolia page, which I don't have any Magnolia, and I was, highly envious of it. But I was
Was that the one Steve, you posted in
he
April?
posted it recently.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
at the
that was
same time,
beautiful.
as much as I was envious of it, I was more happy that he got it. And if I didn't know Steve or we were just, kind of casual acquaintances and we kind of more rivals or competitors, I probably wouldn't feel that way. But that's just the way it is. We both feel really good for each other when we got something. I know he said the same thing when I posted, my Eternals Kirby page.
Right.
I
Oh yeah,
think
there
he
was
kind
some
of
jealousy there, but if
Yeah.
I want, the thing of it is, my feeling is, if I can't own the artwork, I want Dave to own it. Basically.
Yeah.
No,
100%. That's legit. There's no exaggeration there.
listen. I don't think anybody is surprised that you would Steven say that because, well, I assume because I hear that and I'm thinking, well, of course that's true because that's how I've always been, right? And I have to assume, I guess, because that's how I am. I always tend to assume that, sure, isn't everybody like that?
I-
I'm often, like when you talk to friends and somebody says, "Oh, did you see this thing? Let's say coming up at auction," and you're like, "Oh yeah, of course, it's really cool." And it's like, "Oh, did you get it?" Right after the auction, did you get it? It's like, no, unfortunately, but if another one of my friends got it, cool. As long as like somebody I know, you got it, whatever. We're like, and it's not to be mean, but it's like, okay, at least some unknown stranger didn't get it. At least you got it, right?
Yeah.
That's how I feel. It's that whole camaraderie thing, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It is a
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
All
I
right.
think Aranga asked
Go
a
ahead,
good he asked a good question, about people out there that kind of those black holes that don't have friends, and if they're able to enjoy it in a vacuum. I know I get a lot more enjoyment out of this hobby sharing stuff, and either sharing on calf or, I don't put everything on calf. At least I don't put everything up right away. It's kind of, up to schedule and stuff, but I do share everything I get with, Steve or a couple other guys in the hobby that I'm close with that I trust. And that's equally as enjoyable because then they do the same thing. It's like, hey, I got this. I'm not going to share it, but I'll show it to you. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I to address your question, Aranga, the answer for me is yes. Now, in my case, simply because of being a long time in the hobby and having spent all that time as both collector and dealer, I obviously have come into contact with a lot more hobbyists than the average collector might, right? And so, of course, yes, the absolute answer is tons of people I know that just for whatever reason, yeah, they just listen. I think you guys all know some of the reasons, or one of the reasons that some of the guys don't do it is, and you know what I'm going to say, is because a lot of the guys, they are focused, as they should be, on the values of the art, right? And a lot of this falls into that whole topic that we're not going to get into now because it's a whole other show. Good for a roundtable in the future, though. That whole topic of, are you look, if you sorry, guys, I'm being distracted by the fan up above. Sorry. Okay, sorry. Now I'm losing my train of thought now. So what was I saying? Help me out here.
Focus for a later show, investment,
Oh,
and then you're spinning to something else.
Yeah. No, but what was the thing that you said that got me? I wanted to say something about it.
People enjoying their art in a vacuum without other people.
Oh, yeah.
About it. Yeah.
The thing is that some of the people, look, everybody knows, they think because of the whole value thing and everything, they think, well, I don't want to share it just because I feel that when the time does come that I want to sell it, I feel, again, that whole fresh to market thing, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
It's that belief. It's that belief. And I'm not saying, and yes, Rick, exactly. I'm not saying that there's nothing to it. There absolutely is something to it. But at the same time, I will also say it's not 100% true, because I know of numerous examples where I, myself, or friends, or even some strangers in the hobby have sold things that had been on calf in their galleries for years and still got record prices for it when it came time to sell.
I think the heritage results are kind of neutralizing that fear, because it's almost like if it's new to heritage, it's casting a broader net. It's getting more attention now. And it doesn't seem like, it seems like the whole fresh to market was a ploy people would use to say, oh, it's not as valuable because it's not fresh if you put it up. And I don't buy into that at all. I think the results, to your point, probably private and public, are kind of watering that fresh to market down, to me at least. But yeah,
like I said, that's another one of those topics that I have spent hours with a couple of local friends. There's a little league baseball field right next to my house. We go out with chairs because the field's not used. We just go out there with chairs in the spring and the summertime, and we just shoot the breeze about comic art, and it's one of those topics that we sit there for hours on that one topic. So it's a topic that I want to eventually do a roundtable discussion about as one of the roundtable shows I want to do. I love getting into the nitty gritty of that because, like I said, you can talk for hours about it, right? So, but yeah, this is more of a show and tell show, and given the hour and the time, as the time is passing, I can see that we're behind schedule. So let's get on to another piece of art and keep talking about that. And before we do any more discussion, so the next piece, we're jumping a little bit backwards again and to the late 70s. And it's a rare panel page that I'm showing.
It's a nice
exception, the panel page.
Yeah, this is from that famous Hulk annual by Vernon Layton.
Yep.
That is really chased hard. There's a core group of guys. I'm not one of them, but there's a core group of, when those come up, that people just go after it hard. I think it crosses so many collecting focuses with the characters, the artists, that there's just a lot of demand for that issue.
I mean, you can see John in there, but you can also see Bob's art, inking in there also. You can see the both influence on this page.
Yeah. X-Men burn. Yeah, Marcus is right. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, this actually, it's funny because it was, again, we were talking earlier about, having friendships and people, we help each other collect in the hobby. And, this page, along with, if I recall correctly, I think it was two others, It came to me through a friend. He had them and he just contacted me simply, not, of course I love Burn like a lot of people back in the day. But it wasn't even the Burn thing. It was, hey, it's Hulk. You want these Hulk pages? It's like, oh, like that's so nice. Like that's so cool, right? Yes, I'll take them. Of course I'll take them, and yeah, that's part of the fun of the hobby. And then suddenly you come into a few
I
great
love
pages.
it. I love it when that happens, when somebody reaches out and says, hey, I've got this page, it's the Hulk. And sometimes it's people I know, but often it's people that I've never talked to. They just, cruising through CAF and see my collection and how focused it is and passionate. So I love it when that happens, even if it's something I don't buy. Either the page doesn't speak to me or the price it doesn't speak to me. I absolutely love it when people reach out. It's kind of it's a new contact, it's a new relationship. But yeah, it happens a fair amount of times, and that's kind of the opposite side of the people that think I need to keep it all everything secret. But
Yeah.
being out there as a known collector of things, things do float by, and get your attention before anybody else sees it, at least as far as I know.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm sure Steve's experienced that too. His gallery is very similar to mine. So
it's always nice to hear, like, out of the blue. It's those surprise findings that are great.
Yeah, and if it's more art than I can pull down, I'll call Steve and say, hey, I got a few pieces. You want to?
Yeah, for sure. That's the way it is, man. And you, as time goes by, you end up appreciating it even more, because you look back and as you flip through your collection, you pass these pieces as you're flipping through it, and it reminds you of, oh yeah, man, that's the one that like Steve helped me get or whatever, and it makes it more special, right? You the stories behind the art, Yeah. So
yeah.
All right, guys, let's get on to the next piece. And for this one, we stay somewhere in the same era, the late 70s, with a Hulk trim cover.
Very nice.
Nice one from Herb after it left the book. Nice.
You know what's funny about this one is
that's the sweet spot.
And I don't again, because I want to try to start moving a little quicker so we can, not be so behind, but I can't help wanting to give this quick little story about how, to show the audience who weren't around back then, how much an example of how much the hobby has changed in all this time. So when I got this, it once again was through a friend who also was a Hulk collector, a Hulk fan. And at the time, honestly, I hated this cover. Okay. Yeah. So not that I hated it because I thought, oh, this is a terrible cover, but like, given what I already had, I thought, oh, this is nowhere near as nice as the pieces I've already accumulated. So I was like, for me, this was one of those covers where, oh, I can afford it. I've got the money. So, okay, sure. I mean, it's still a trimpy and it's from the right time period that I enjoy. So why not? Okay, I'll take it. Whereas today, if this comes up available for the market, on the market, like it's going for like a boatload of money simply because it's, a trimpy. It's from that, a very desirable time period. It's got quite a large Hulk image, so on and so forth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the thing that, Dave just kind of mentions his sweet spot, because he and I both have that same sweet spot in terms of Sal's period, like up through, I mean, I love all of Sal's artwork, but like up through 240 and lower than that is the key stuff that I love. So this is great time period on the Hulk book. And my goal is to eventually own a cover from that period, but I think I'll have to donate or sell my kidney in order to afford that at this point.
Yeah, Steve and I both have that same goal. So we kind of got to make sure we're not competing with each other if something comes along that kind of scratches the itch for both of us.
Well, we'll both have these as a deal for people who are looking to maybe trade for a cover.
For sure. And it's like that those covers there, for a long time, I didn't want one, right? Because I remember that era and Sal's art on the interiors was so good. And I was always so disappointed every month that would come out, hoping that Sal drew the cover, and he didn't. Now, and I love Herb. I love Trimpy. I have his art. But from my eyes, my first issue was Sal, and I grew up on, pulling stuff from the spinner rack with Sal. So every issue that came out that didn't have Sal's art on it, it was kind of a, and kind of a wondering, oh, is Sal going to be on the inside? And so at first I kind of didn't want those, but now there's, I've kind of come back, and I am still nostalgic for the covers because they do represent what's behind it. But yeah, those I've kind of done a flip on those a little bit. I would like to get a nice example from that period.
For sure.
Right.
And then to Marcus's question in the chats, I'm not going to wear it, but I'll hold it. I'll hold it up. So
touche, Dave. Touche. I did not expect that,
All
actually.
right, bonus round for Dave.
Yeah.
Excellent. Awesome. All right, guys, let's get on to the next piece. Right, the pretty much exact same time period. In fact, from the next issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that storyline. That is like peak Sal for me, because I started 227 was my first issue, and that's the book that I seek more than anything. And so that is my favorite story arc, and especially because it was the first time I had traveled or chased a crossover. So this jumped into Captain America, right? And so this was huge for me.
I agree. This was like that to the crossover. This is when Marvel started, pulling me into other books because of doing things like this.
Yeah, this was huge. This is like early Moonstone too, and she's kind of
third issue
become a little bit more popular.
Yeah, third or fourth. I think fourth appearance or third or fourth appearance. Yeah.
If you want to pull the camera back to me, Ruben.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Give me a second here. And here we go.
So there you go.
Wait a second. So hold on. Let me.
Owner, now no.
Wait a second. So is it that did I just miss it on CAF, or you don't?
It's not in CAF. I haven't had this one. I haven't had this one too long.
Okay.
I haven't gotten around to getting a good scan on it yet.
Okay.
Not dry yet.
So this is a debut for CAF for a while.
Awesome.
It was actually on CAF for a while. I bought it from a CAF owner.
Okay, cool.
And it's so where did you get your scan? Is your scan original?
Yeah, that's actually, you mean the scan I just used for the slide?
Yeah.
That's actually my original scan that I believe it's from 2002. That was before I, or practically anybody, probably hadn't even heard of the existence of 11x17 scanners. So I was still using an 8.5x11. And what I used to do is when I'd buy art, I'd ride my motorcycle downtown. I mean, there had to have been print shops closer to me, but for whatever reason, I'd ride all the way downtown because they had good machines and, good copiers. And I'd scan a bunch of art, photocopy a bunch of art, ride back home, scan the 8.5x11 reduced photocopies I had made. And that's what I was using, because even back then, those images still were better than those shitty photographs that people would take where it's like from far away at these crappy angles where the art's sort of like this or like that or whatever. And it's like the yellow light in the room is making it hard to see what you're looking at. You know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So 20 plus years ago, I actually had an 11x17 scanner.
How long ago?
It was about 20 years ago, because when I was doing my website, I was doing database on all the Hulk villains and all the Hulk characters. So I had to have something good quality to scan the upload. And I went with 1117 because I had artwork and I wanted to get it to size. So I kept that sucker till the updates would not let me use it anymore.
Well, let me ask you real quick before we go on to the next slide. What was the cheap that you remember? What was the cheapest 11x17 scanner in those days?
Boy, I'm old, Ruben. I can't remember.
Well, I only ask because what I remember, my memory of it was like when people on the old Comic Art L list started to talk about, large size format scanners, and everybody was using the Muse Tech one. I feel like that was around 2004-ish.
No, yeah.
But I wonder if maybe it was maybe going back to 2002. I don't know.
It was about 20 years ago, but it wasn't that expensive. I mean, it was just a standard. I don't even remember the brand, but it was a couple $100 maybe. It wasn't a lot. I know that because way back then, I was not getting as much artwork because I couldn't afford that much. But so I would not have spent a huge amount on a scanner, because more money in the scanner means less money for the artwork. So it was a reasonable price.
Yeah, and Jason, the truth is, you're right. Like, I'm in Canada, and when I got the scanner that I'm using, thankfully it hasn't conked out on me yet, even though it's probably like, I don't know, 18 or 20 years old. It's an Epson. And I've had it since probably 2004, I think. And the reason I had to get it through the States is because I can't find it here for some reason. In Canada, nobody carries them. I don't. Yeah.
Like 1117 is standard legal size too, so you would think you'd find them.
That's what I don't understand. I'm like, come on, like, who doesn't, like, I don't get it. How could there not be some kind of business here in this country that needs the ability to scan 11x17? Like, it's just bizarre.
That is weird.
You know, and of course I was doing what everybody does. Oh yeah, check all the big box stores. You know, nothing. Everything was 8.5 by 11. It's like, what the? I don't get it. You know. But
so
anyways,
where did this one come from, Ruben? I'm curious, because I always love to know the backstory on anything I own. I mean, going all the way back to Sal drawing it if I can. I'm fascinated.
What do you mean, the piece?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even remember. Probably eBay.
Okay. eBay. Okay.
Probably. I can't really remember, but probably. Okay. More than likely. Yeah. Okay, let's go and check out the next one. And for this one, we're going to jump back up to the modern age. For me, I consider it modern age. Let's see what you guys think. Everybody sees things differently.
Oh, Keown. You can never go wrong with the Keown.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What's going on, Dave?
My mic was, or my thing was.
Oh, okay.
Dave and I drove up to Canada just to meet Keown, to have him some artwork for us.
Yeah, we had both been trying to chase Dale for a long time, primarily for a commission. And so and the thing with Dale is he only does shows in Canada. And, at least when I started thinking about trying to go to a show, 10, 15 years ago, he was rumored to kind of just like not show up at a show at the last minute for whatever reason. Not to say that he was flaking, but like for whatever reasons, there had been a couple times, which kind of complicates making a drive that far across the border, primarily to meet Dale. So it was a big deal. And so Steve and I got together and said, we're going to do it. And then at that point, I found out I needed a passport, which I didn't have one. So we literally
how did you not think of that ahead of time?
Well, by the time I did, it just took time because we weren't sure if we were going to go or not. And so I literally, my passport came in 2 days before Steve was going to drive up to my house, and then we were going to drive up to the show. So
great timing.
It was very impromptu, but yeah, it was a great experience. Dale is so nice, so good with the fans.
We were pretty much at his table
all weekend.
So I think he may have put a restraining order out on us, but I'm not sure. But we were there actually to the very end of the show, and we're like, hey Dale, now that you're leaving, can I have your lanyard with your name on it? And
and I got his name. I got his nameplate, and he signed it. Yeah.
Like, can I have your shirt too? Can I just take your shirt?
Steve asked for his socks. It was really weird.
No offense to either of you guys, but you guys sound like those type of stalkerish type fans that you hear about,
But it was Keown, because we tried for years to get a commission, and Dave got an awesome commission. I got him to do a Planet Hulk commission in my sketchbook. It was worth it just because I love his artwork.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the next scan. For this one, we're moving back to the very early 80s.
Oh,
Bermuda Junior.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. I know where this one is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you've got it there.
That is
currently in the collection of my buddy Amir E.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the interior artwork for this just came out for sale. Like, I don't know how long ago was it? Like 6 months.
I have a page from this issue, a really good one. First appearance of Sabra.
Yeah,
that's a great one. And I actually, Amir, I think shared this before he posted it, and swore me to secrecy. But yeah, this is a fantastic cover. I love Ramita's covers. He draws the Hulk so well.
That's an early one from him too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, that's probably 1980, I think.
What was he, 12 at the time or something?
Yeah, he was fairly young when he broke in. What
Yeah.
like in 70, I don't know, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Still very much kind of following his dad's look
Yep.
there.
That's true. Oh, that's a good point, Dave. Actually, it does have a similar look to the Hulk as his dad. Good point.
Yeah, and Aranga, that was by design, by the way. I figured I'd go from modern era back 20 whatever years from Sabra to Sabra. So by design, bud.
I still remember this issue for like at the end when the Hulk makes the point of the useless war. Even as a kid, that struck a chord with me as to the Hulk's making a social comment, about war. It was a good story.
Yeah. Same here. I was 10 at the time, probably. So of course I wasn't collecting yet, but that was one of the earlier Hulk back issues I got in '82 when I was 12. And I would say, yeah, for sure, one of the earliest, maybe even the earliest comic book related introduction to politics and what things are like in other parts of the world, and it struck a chord with me. So
it was a bold story. It was a bold comment there, right there.
It stuck with me, Okay, excellent. So let's move on to the next piece. And for this, we jump back ahead to the modern era. And boy, I got something to say, and it's not so positive about this one because, as usual, I want to be honest. And let's show it first, and I'll let you guys say what you got to say. And I hope you're going to be honest. There we go.
Yeah.
You said it all already, and off we go to the next piece, everybody.
Yeah. So my comment on this was nobody. I shouldn't say nobody. I didn't think anybody could follow Dale's footsteps. And Gary Frank did an amazing job, kind of keeping the bar really high for Hulk art. But yeah, Jan's art was not. It was kind of a letdown for me in terms of the high level that Dale had established. I would say the value to me on this is it is nostalgic. Anything you remember reading and flipping pages, it kind of transports you back to what you were thinking at the time, where you were in your life. But my artistic reaction to this was, why did they let Dale go?
Yeah, Jan's done some great artwork, but this just kind of goes to show you that you could have a great artist, but they don't always match up with the character they're drawing. So
that's a great point.
Where Jan, great artwork in other books, that style did not meet the Hulk. It's just, there's lots of examples of that.
Yeah,
hey, Ted. Ted just popped in.
Yeah, Ted's there. Hey, Ted. I wonder if you just popped in, Ted. Let us know. We talked about you earlier.
His ears were burning. Yeah, I mean, I would get this honestly just for the UFOs too, just because, like Ted mentioned, it's the UFOs. I love the UFOs for whatever reason, and
yeah. So let me at least just say one thing. I guess that something that's not negative, so to speak. Yes, obviously, I don't have to go into what you guys already touched upon, but ultimately for me, it was just one of these things where, again, sure, it's not like I sought that out. It became available. I was when I saw it, but at the same time, I could say, well, I do like, number one, the UFOs. What were see you guys shaking your heads, right? So the UFOs were a nostalgic favorite for me. So for that reason alone, I was like, yeah. So if he's throttling Ironclad, choking the life out of him, that by itself is cool. And I thought that the way that Jan had filled the page with the body, right, to sort of make it sort of exaggerate just how big and powerful the Hulk is, it basically fills it up side to side, top to bottom. And so I thought, okay, that's kind of neat too. But yeah, stylistically speaking, of course, not a great
Dave's point. This is nostalgia. If this page came up and it was a reasonable price that I felt comfortable with, I would get it. I'm not going to pay like Sal money for it, but
this page had come up, 3 or 4 years ago. Had come across, my as an option to get it. I might have got it in today's market. It's probably, past me by. I think a lot of the art from this era kind of suffered from I don't know if it was Marvel direction, but Hulk ended up with the pinhead, with the overly muscled, thin waist, spaghetti veins all over the place, and it was kind of a product, I think, of editorial direction, or trying to look like somebody else. There's a lot of art from going from that time frame, and then after after that storyline ended with Gary Frank, where it kind of got a little bit wonky. But yeah, I will get a page from Jan for my collection. I just haven't found the right one yet. Just because I do want to have a page from all the artists from that stretch.
Good, cool. All right. So with that, we're going to jump back in time. No, not too far back into the 70s, though, to a piece from the Rampaging Hulk. It's actually an inside front cover, or as a lot of you know it, a frontispiece.
Oh,
that is really cool.
Yeah, this is Rich Buckler pencils and inks.
Yeah, I need to get a piece of artwork from one of those magazines. I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I got a page from my favorite issue, the Sal issue, the Avengers, Hulk versus Hulk. So I think I'm kind of scratched the itch, and the prices have jumped on it. But this is really nice.
Yeah,
I really like this a lot. This is a really good one.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was one of those pieces that it wasn't on my mental want list, but it became available, and I was like, I've always been a fan. I have this thing, and I think other people can relate to this. I've always been a big fan of those covers with that classic layout of like, there's like a cityscape, and the primary characters are down on the ground, on the street level, let's say, and then up in the clouds there's like the looming figure of a character, either just his head or his the bust, typically a villain looming over the action. If you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
this kind of reminds me of there was a puzzle around the same time period with the Hulk with lightning behind him on a mountain. I'm not sure if anybody else remembers.
Yeah.
That.
Oh yeah. Yep.
They kind
And
of
then there was actually a similar piece in that the Shara issue that you led off with, Ruben, where the DPS I own, it's kind of got him, arms up, screaming into the sky with the light. It's
right.
It's a very similar and often done visual, but this is very unique. I like this one a lot.
Cool. All right. So with that, we will jump ahead to the next one. Probably only 3 or 4 years to the Sal era. It's actually not it's a Hulk page, but it's not. You'll see in a second. And again, it doesn't have Hulk.
You had me at Sal though. So
yeah.
And I love what you'll see. It's the Synod inks. But still a cool piece for obvious reasons. You'll see in a second. And here you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Love all the detail in that.
You got the Avengers. What more do you need?
Yeah, for me, it was, look, it's obviously not really fitting somebody who's collecting Hulk art per se. The only connection is obviously that it comes from the Hulk series. But, loving the penciler and inker combination, and the fact that, well, it's the entire Avengers team in quite a nice panel. I was like, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, I'll add it anyways, even though it's technically not Hulk art. You know what I mean?
A bunch of pages from these latter, issues with Sal and Synod have been popping up to the market the last few years, and there's some good splashes. This is a really good one. I always liked Synod's inks. In general, he made everybody look really good. He really stayed true to Sal's lines. And like I think he did one issue in that sweet spot that Steve was talking about. I think it's 226, and then he came back and did a bunch of issues in the latter 200s. These are really good. I remember reading these issues and thinking, man, these look really, really good.
And I mean, kind of to your point, Ruben, and I know Dave's the same way. We both collect pages from Sal that definitely do not have the Hulk on them. I just love looking at his art. So,
yeah. Oh, listen. I'm not. Yeah, I'm not saying there's there's no right way or wrong way to collect.
Yep.
Even when you're focused on a character, right? It's whatever. It's technically Hulk art, but it's not. Whatever. So. Sure. All right. So with that, we will jump in to just a couple of years later. This one is on CAF, and it's in a collection that you know.
Oh,
And
Yes.
that's a nice
yeah.
that's a nice page from Mike.
I remember reaching out to you on this, Ruben, probably early on in the days. You didn't know who I really was, and I didn't know who you were. And
Oh,
trying to inquire.
that had to have been the case, because and I apologize, but I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was early
Yeah.
on. I remember inquiring about it because in my mind, here's a guy with some Hulk pages that doesn't really look like he's a Hulk guy.
Right.
You know, by that point, you had cut everything loose. So I'm
Yeah,
like, this is kind of an oddball piece in your collection. And I remember reaching out to you, and you came back with this art's not that good. This isn't very good art from that era. If you have any, I'd like to buy it. And I was like, yeah, I don't have any. I wouldn't mind having it, but yeah, I would. I love Mignola stuff. That's on
So
my
actually,
bucket list.
For the page that I have now, I had actually reached out to Ruben when I was trying to chasing this page, because Mike's Hulk artwork is not really, there's not a lot out there. So I was trying to gauge what the value of it was before I made an offer to it. And because of this and the other pages you have on CAF, I actually reached out to Ruben to see if he had an idea on the value.
Yeah, I love this page for a lot of reasons. Artistically, it's very strong. I also love any page from the Hulk that's got the word monster. So anytime that he's referred to as a monster, especially when it's done in the lettering and prominent, and this has just kind of got a great kind of horror motif to it, with the baby, and it's just a great. You don't need any story on this page.
And this is from that classic story of Bruce Banner as a child. I mean, so everyone loves this issue just because it really started to build into that, split personality kind of thing.
So Ruben, why'd you keep this one? And was this part of your, secret acquisition mode, and then, or is this something different?
No. So the reason I kept this one, and just FYI, I believe I have, it's 2 or 3. Yeah, 3 of the panel pages.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And if you go to the gallery, you'll see that the 3 panel pages don't have any Hulk on them.
Yep.
The reason I kept them is because this story made it just hit me with the impact of like a sledgehammer when I read it. I think I was probably 13, 14. And for me, just reading it, and oh God, I love, first of all, the fact that they would introduce this powerful topic of child abuse, right? That's already, that by itself, it was a big deal in a mainstream comic book. But the way that Bill Mantlo gets all the credit, the way he used child abuse from his dad and tied it in such a way to say, after, whatever it had been at the time, 25, 27 years of the Hulk's existence, to tie it in and sort of give us this idea that it's not just the gamma rays that suddenly made him turn into a monster, right? That it was the inherent abuse that he had absorbed as a child all those years, inflicted upon him by his dad, that perhaps the gamma rays then, when he got bombarded by them, brought all that rage and anger that he had built up all his life due to that abuse, and it brought it out of him. To me, that was just...
And you hear from so many writers on the book, they reference that issue specifically. Like when they're doing their stories, they reference that as how they build stuff up because of what was built in that one issue. So
that's been a steady stream. I mean, the first Hulk movie had bits of that in it. Even the Immortal Hulk run had issues dedicated to kind of that trauma that happened there. That's a great aspect of the story. It's a really deep part of the story that I enjoy as well.
So Ruben, did you have other pages from that issue, or are those the only ones you've ever had that are up on CAF?
No, they're the only ones I've ever had. Okay. And it's funny because I believe, like, in my description for the pages,
because I think you were looking for them, but those were posted a long time ago, so I wasn't sure if you ever found any more.
No, exactly. And that's the crazy thing. So when I posted them, those pages, without the Hulk on them, they were like $85 a piece.
Don't tell me things like that, Ruben. Please don't tell me.
Yeah, that's painful. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. I can give you, you can make some good money on those pages,
Well, the splash was only like $250. So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you're hurting us here, Ruben. You're
but
hurting
it's
us with
fun.
that.
It's fun.
Yeah,
I
it
know.
is. Everyone has
It-
those stories.
But
It's
but
funny because we've been chasing Sal's art for, I've been chasing it for a while. Steve's been chasing it longer, and we compare notes all the time. If a Sal piece of art hits the market or hits anywhere online, I'm either sending it to Steve or he's sending it to me, and it's like, did you see this? If it's for sale, hey, what'd you think about the price? We've often lament about the latter art in Sal's Hulk run, and I'll kind of throw this in there too because it was around that same time frame. That art was like, not a lot of people wanted it. Everybody wanted the earlier Sal stuff, the Defender Sal Hulk stuff,
yeah.
the 70s, early into the very early 80s, the mid 80s stuff. People were like, they buy it, but it didn't command premium, and that's just all changed. Now it's like that's caught up with everything else. It's kind of almost leveled the playing field.
It really has.
Yeah. But that's it. To answer your question, Steve, I believe it was you who asked. That's why it was one of the few exceptions that I kept. All those pages. It was more the story, and I, all these years later, have always been interested in getting more. And I'm not even interested in the Hulk page. I won't buy the Hulk content pages. I only have interest in the ones that feature the origin, scenes of his dad, and the whole child abuse aspect of the story, because that's what hit me so hard about it,
So if someone came right now, would you still be interested in getting?
You know what? In theory, yes. The only thing is, though, I haven't seen any since I got those.
Yep.
And given what they probably would cost, I'm assuming I'd probably be like, you know what? I'm okay. I'm happy with the ones I have. I don't think yeah. So
just redirect them to me and Dave. That's fine.
Of course I will. Of course I will.
That's right. And Aranga brings up an interesting backstory on this. I don't want to really kind of go down that tangent, but an interesting backstory to that. And I'm going to actually try to find Derek's video.
And he's right, by the way. Aranga, you're correct. That's what I read. That's what I heard and read. Yeah.
I don't remember. It's a really interesting backstory. I look forward to catching up on that. So
yeah. Let's see what's Derek saying. That's why I was curious. Ruben, Dave, Steve had read them. Oh yeah.
I've seen
not
it.
Me.
I just haven't pulled the trigger on it yet.
Yeah, I've seen it. I haven't pulled the trigger either. Yeah, it's on my list though, for sure.
Yeah, Derek, for me, it's one of those things that, because I had heard about it for so many years and it just never got done. It never happened. By the time it happened, to be honest, I just lost interest, and I'm not really any more interested anymore in even trying it. But Derek, let me know if you have read it. Oh, it's heavy but interesting. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to read it anymore, but I'm glad you said it, because at least that gives me an idea as to whether it would be interesting to me. So, yeah. But there you have it. But okay.
All right.
Let's go on to the next one. And
I have no idea what Axl-Rose syndrome means. What does that even mean?
Oh, bipolar. I assume Rick, you're going for that whole thing that he was bipolar. I'm assuming. What else would it be? Or let me know, Rick.
And Derek, send me that link. I'll check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let us move on now back into the modern era. Not a cover I particularly loved, but bought it anyways. And it's
those are pretty affordable back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. No, which is why I went for it. That's
Angel had a very unique, exaggerated style. It's not on my calf, but I actually traded for one of the covers that he did. Not this one, but one of the ones with the leader, Bruce, and the Hulk.
Angel's are super nice guy. I've met him at cons. And yeah, he's on my bucket list too. And I just find with his art, it either says, yes, I have to have it, or, it kind of hits me the other way. And I'm like, no, it's not, I'm not interested. Yeah. But yeah, there's some really amazing pieces. This is I love the art here so much better than the cover. the line work is just pops a lot more on the art. It kind of gets a little lost in the published, but the art looks really, really bold and striking.
Yeah, for me, the reason I wasn't so hot on it, and I still bought it anyways, because it was another Hulk cover. I was a fan of Medina, but I guess when I first looked at it, I guess I just sort of thought, I don't know. I looked at the head. I guess I couldn't tell. I had to stare at it for a while to kind of figure out what's going on with the body. Where exactly is all the body parts? It's not clear to me. It just feels like it's not clear to me. I don't know if you know what I'm trying to get
Yeah,
at.
I know. I totally get it. Yeah, and the kind of
There's a lot
the
going on.
color. The color art kind of brings that definition more to light, and I think that might have been what they were trying to do. But I still like the line art much better. I kind of like that detail.
There's some artists that just look better black and white. Matteo Scalera, if anyone who that is, his artwork is just better in black and white than colored.
Yeah,
Another example of that.
Right. All right. Well, anyways, that's enough for that one, and let us go back in the way back machine. Not that way back.
Oh, Paul says Cool Lines have it. No one's ever going to get that one.
$1 million.
That's it. It's over.
But now that this has been published, it's probably $3 million.
Yes.
There you go.
Oh, man.
From the Silver Surfer issue.
Oh, geez, man. Those pages go for a lot of money, too. Jeez.
Yep. Yeah, I remember this page really well. It was available for quite a long time. It's got the monster on it. It's got a great pensive Hulk, which is, a steady steam through the story. I remember this one. I almost pulled the trigger on it a few times. And of course, I regret that I didn't, because it's now, skyrocketed up. But I remember, I think it looks like the top and Dicia was recreated. That's something I remember from the original art when I was looking at it. So I think that piece was added from when it was for sale that I remember from. Yeah, but yeah, it's a great monster page.
Just want to quickly comment to Marcus that just like the Sabra to Sabra pieces, monster to monster, also by design.
Yeah. That's a great South Splash.
Yeah. So yeah, it's I mean, it was a very, for me, a back issue again, one of my early back issues. But yeah, I was just so thrilled to finally get something at the time from that issue. Yeah, just nice, looking pensively over the hills, over the city, so to speak. And yeah, it was just nice. Also from, the fact, even though the Surfer's not on it, I would have loved that, but I only got a panel page with the Surfer. Never got like one of the splashes or the cover. And the cover ultimately came out onto the market, but I believe that happened after I'd already gotten out of Hulk collecting. So
yeah, those pages with the Surfer on them, they're hard to get, and they're not a cheap date either.
Yeah, the Surfer guys go just as nuts or more than the Hulk guys. That's a double whammy there if you're trying to buy a page.
Surfer.
Yeah.
All right, so going from that point, just a little, I think a year back, we're going to go to this one featuring one of my all-time other favorite characters.
That's
a great one.
That is.
That's one of the better Milgram covers from his era. Milgram had some really good ones, and then he had some that I don't know, just didn't quite speak to me as much. But this is one of his really, really nice examples. I love stuff from this era. I mean, seeing that Marvel's TV sensation on there just hits the the
nostalgic sweet spot.
Oh yeah, because you're watching that show, and then you're going and getting the comic, and it just all kind of ties it together. Marvel really knew what they were doing with the marketing on those.
I think I've managed to get 6 pages from this annual, because I love the issue with Sasquatch and the Hulk and fighting. So
God, Steve, don't even talk to me about it, because I am like the world's biggest Alfredo Alcala fan, and so I love his inks over Sal. Oh God.
Well, I've got the page. I'm not sure if you've seen it on my calf, but I've got like the 2/3 splash with him.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it.
I've seen it, Steve, and I had it. But
Yeah, I mean, when I was still collecting, and I got the cover, and then I got a page, um, I really was like, oh God, if I could just get as many pages from, I'd love to get the whole book, you know. Of course, I'm realistic, and I knew that wasn't going to happen. And the crazy thing about it was, it's one of those issues where all these years later, there still hasn't been very many panel pages from that book that have come out onto the
No,
market.
Looks like
not many at all.
looks like Will had it. So I don't know if you bought it from Will or Will bought it from you, but you guys might have done a deal on that at some point.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. But okay, moving on. And again, once again, by design, I had to do this. Jumping from Sasquatch to Sasquatch,
Oh,
I had to do this one.
That's
So
a
I know you
classic
still
cover.
have that one. That's your grail. That I've
That's
seen
my
you
holy
post.
holy
Yeah.
grail, my friend.
Yeah, well,
That's
you've
a
got
nice-
you've got the mic on this one, Ruben. Why don't you
Sex-
tell us, why this is
Sec-
your grail?
Nah. It's my holy grail, second only to my daughter. But
Yeah.
I listen. I will. You know, we're starting to sort of a little bit catch up to the time I wanted to make, the time frame I wanted to make. So there's no way I want to talk about this, because if you want to know, you're just gonna have to go to the listing and read my entire long ass description. Everything I want to say about it is in there. I'll let you guys say whatever you want to say.
I mean, this is the classic cover with Wendigo and Sasquatch and Hulk. And it's a great.
It's had so much good stuff going on. I mean, Hulk is a monster, right? And you've got two more monsters here. This is really good.
Yeah.
Another one of the really good Milgram covers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how did you get this one? Do you remember how you acquired this one?
Yeah, this one I absolutely do, and it's actually it's funny because it was very simple. I got it from Al.
What? Really?
Very
He
nice.
doesn't let a lot of stuff go. That's pretty good.
He's sorry, say that again?
He doesn't let a lot of stuff go.
Yeah, well, okay, so back then, absolutely, you're absolutely correct. In the last year, he has been letting go, but strictly to auction.
Yep.
Yep.
That's smart. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah. So at the time, interestingly enough, what had happened was, I mean, I hope it's okay to say it. I think it's okay. I was told at the time that it was okay. So so what happened at the time was Al's mom had either been sick or she had passed away, one of the two. And he lived, I believe, in New York. He was on the East Coast, but his mom was on the West Coast. And what happened was, of course, she had no one to take care of her. So Al had to keep traveling cross country back and forth to take care of her, or again, either take care of her or the estate, because I don't remember, as I said, whether she had passed or not. And so because of that, apparently, I guess all the, flying back and forth and all that, I guess the expenses were quite high, obviously, as you can imagine. And so he decided, okay, he told Spencer Beck that he could use some money, some funds to help with that. And I don't remember how, I don't know if it was like Spencer who put out the word, or whether I just coincidentally happened to ask him. I do think that it was me just coincidentally asking him at the right time. I think that's what happened. Yeah, that's what I remember, that it was like an email going, I know this is a long shot, but, could you just check with Al if you have contact with him? And if by any chance he still has this cover. And actually, that was the same email where I also asked for the Hulk Annual 8. Because again, I wanted both the Sasquatches,
Yeah.
And it just turned out that he checked for me. He said, yep, he still has it. And next thing you know, long story short, we did the deal.
Very nice. Congratulations. I love it when I I love it when I hear a story about something that means something so much to somebody landing in their collection. It's always a good read. Always enjoy.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, like when I say holy grail, I mean that's it, and that ties into part of the reason, which I don't know if we will even have time to do it, but part of the reason why it was easier to let go of the collection when I did. And I don't mean to say this, like, I know it's going to sound bad to some of you hardcore collectors, but when you have found, if you have one, not everybody necessarily has one, but if you have found your holy grail, once you have found it and you've acquired it, everything else is downhill from there to varying degrees. And so what I mean by that is, yeah, getting rid of other stuff you love, it still hurts. Of course it does. But when you know that everything else that you did get rid of, it still will never mean as much to you as that one piece. It makes it more palatable when you lose the other stuff. That's what I guess what I don't know if I've said it well.
Yeah, that
I'm
makes sense.
still chasing my splash. Hulk 206, page 1, in case anybody, wants to sell it to me.
You heard that, everybody. Reach out to Steve.
106, page 1.
Reach out to Steve and piss off Dave.
No. If that one came across, that Steve would get the shot at that.
Excellent.
That was
Just
my
like-
first Hulk
just
tattoo,
like-
was that image.
Yeah,
So,
just like any 227 pages.
Yeah.
Come here.
There you go.
Not anybody else. Come here.
only
There you
today.
All right, so let's throw up another one here. We're kind of going back, I believe.
Hey, seeing these covers just makes me get that itch even more to get one of those classic covers.
Oh,
Back to the annual
back to
7.
the
Another
end.
one.
Yeah.
That's a great
That's-
battle page. I love
Doc.
Hulk and Doc pages.
I like Doc Samson too, so
Yeah.
yeah, I thought at the time I was thrilled to get like a pretty, somewhat actiony page. you
Yeah.
know?
I
You know,
think
the previous one I showed, yeah, they're kind of standing around just talking, but
I seem to recall that Byrne wasn't happy with Leighton inking his pencils
Yes.
on this issue. But to me, I can see why John might have not liked it, because it does have a little bit of Bob, probably more Bob in it than John would prefer. But to me,
Yeah.
I still like the pages. They
Oh, yeah.
really work from my perspective. Just a well illustrated issue.
Yep.
yeah. I don't think there's any reason not to mention it. But what I remember reading this is that John, the reason stated for him hating what Bob did with his pencils is actually not generally that, he did a bad job on that annual. He stated more specifically that, Bob made the angel look so gay on that first page splash. That's what he said. That's and that was his beef.
Just
Well,
that one image, or the whole,
Yeah. Well, I guess the image, because he's sort of lying there, leaning on his sort of elbow kind of thing in bed, and he's shirtless from the top up, I guess, and he's a blonde, good-looking guy. I don't know that
We all know Byrne is the grumpy old man yelling at the kids on his lawn at this point. So
Yeah, it is what it is, but whatever.
it's still some great artwork.
Yeah,
regardless.
and what's funny is that to me and a lot of Hulk fans, we all love it. We all think Bob did a great job over Byrne on that.
You can see the best of both artist and the inker in those pages. You really can.
Yeah.
I just got my first Leighton Hulk page actually in Comic Art Live a couple weeks ago. And it's like there's not a lot of it out there,
The
I
funny
would
thing was, the week before that, it wasn't even a week before that, we were talking about that specific issue. Dave and I were like, we both want something from that issue, and then it was like the week before the
It was the week before, and this is just an example of what we were talking about earlier, Ruben. We talk all the time.
Yeah. No, I've heard.
All the time. We can
I've
have
heard.
an hours-long conversation.
I
about
know.
Hulk art.
I do that. I do that with certain friends too. Believe me. I think we all have friends like that.
And
But
we were
the funny
both.
thing was, we were talking about that specific issue, which is one out of how many Hulk issues.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
a week later, Dave's able to get a page, and it was a great page. So I was excited that he got probably like the best page from the run too, from that issue.
Yeah, and just want to say also that just much like the following year's annual, the number 8 with Sasquatch, this annual is also one of those books that, for whatever reason, 25 years into the hobby, I haven't seen more than five pages, 5 panel pages.
You can't find them.
It's like, really, you just gotta, where the hell is all this stuff?
Yeah.
So whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But
Octavio
whatever.
joined.
Okay.
Another big Hulk guy.
Yep.
All right, guys. So let's move on to the other one, and with another similarity connection by design.
Oh, there you go. Great
Burn.
cover by him.
Current owner unknown. Wow, that's a good one. Such a short run.
Yeah.
This one's a little painful because these pages have really jumped up.
Yeah.
Berkey had one, sat on the site forever, and I was like literally about to pull the trigger, and it sold right before I reached out. It's just one of those perfect examples. I just waited too long. But yeah, I loved. This is a great cover.
Yeah, I really want to add a burn page from his run from here, but with those prices, I'm like, well, I can buy a really nice burn page, or I can get a nice Sal page, and unfortunately, I'm going to get the Sal page every time.
Yeah.
But I still need to get something from John's run on this for sure.
See why I'm so envious, Ruben, is this is
Yeah.
back. These pages, this stuff was all bought back before, I was buying when covers and splashes were much more accessible in terms of availability and
Yes.
even price point. They were more than panel pages, but I just feel like I missed the hobby by 5-10 years or whatever. I can't even imagine. I look, Steve's got a lot of stuff like covers and splashes, and when he tells me how he got it from either how easy or how cheap it was, I just knock myself. But I mean, I don't have regrets. I love what I have, but
No
it
regrets.
it just was a different, I can just tell it was a different time in terms of this
Yeah,
hobby.
the thing about it was I admit, and the way it ties in kind of to how I sort of accumulated the collection. Part of the reason why I was able to accumulate what I did is because one of the things that you touched upon, which is that, I mean, there was a fairly small fraction of the amount of people that there are today in this hobby back then. And so it was more accessible, right? The pieces would hit the market. And if like I was, one of, let's say, 3 or 4 at most guys who also said, I'm looking for Hulk art, right? Then you had a pretty damn good shot at getting it, right? It wasn't as much competition back then. Plus, it was still affordable, even though, remember, take into account that, I want to make the important point that a lot of people say, oh, I wish I was back then. I was in back then. Oh, because it was so cheap and all that. It wasn't ever cheap. Believe me, it was still hard to come up with the money oftentimes, because if you're thinking about, because everybody tends to compare the prices and how they would be able to afford them back then, because they're thinking of the money and affordability in the financial terms that they live in today. But the real way to look at it realistically is you got to put yourself in the time frame of, well, how old were you back then? What were you, where were you in your life financially back then? Then tell me, oh yeah, it would have been so easier. It would have been so great and so cheap to get this stuff. Not really. It was still hard because you likely weren't making the same kind of money. You know what I'm saying?
I have to disagree. I
Really?
hear what you're.
Wow.
I hear what you're saying, but the money I was spending on comics and toys, I can look at it and say, yeah, if that was available in 99 or 2000, I can look and say, here's what I was buying at that time and what I was spending at that time. I could have bought it if I was aware about it. If it was, my hobby. And I just know that once I would have discovered this, even if it had been 5-10 years earlier, I would have pivoted like I did in 05, 06. I would have pivoted in 95 or 99 or 01. I hear what you're saying, but I just think the price relative to what they are now for the same pages, they're higher, even comparatively to inflation or costs or whatever you're saying.
So I'm gonna answer Nick's question and also feed off of Dave's answer to this right here, because Nick's wondering if I have any statues. No, he said, do I ask if I had any statues?
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So at one point, I had the world's largest memorabilia collection of Hulk collectibles. I mean, I had a whole 3rd floor of just everything Hulk, every toy.
I've seen it. Yeah.
I mean, I had Hulk Spider-Man toilet paper from the 70s, if you remember that, where they actually made a unique storyline.
I remember
toilet paper. I mean, I had a huge thing. So at that point, I was focused. My collection was very broad. I was doing collectibles plus the artwork. But if I had so I used to have statues. Once I decided to focus just on all the action figures behind me and just the artwork, I kind of got rid of everything to focus just on artwork. Figures, the action figures don't cost that much and they don't come out that much. So I sold everything just to focus on that. So really the only statue I have still is the Bowen Planet Hulk, which I will never get rid of because I love Planet Hulk. I love Bowen statues, but I kind of liquidated everything to put it in artwork. But if I was not doing collectibles as a general rule, I would have gotten more artwork way back then. I just was too broad.
And Nick, I do still have all my statues. They're just boxed up. That'll be another show. Steve and I are talking about doing some stuff. I've got 15 feet of just statues.
Impressive statue collection.
Yeah, and I look at it and I love it, but I wish I would have pivoted sooner because it's not artwork.
All right. Well, we got to keep this moving. But before we do, just really quick, Larry, the quick answer is I didn't ever buy anything from CBG. I loved reading CBG, honestly, even just like fanzines. I was a lover of the behind the scenes of creating comics, the craft of making comics. So I loved reading the fanzines and the prozines and things like CBG even more than I loved reading the comics. But I was brought up in the 80s. Back then, you were taught to don't do mail order. Don't ever do mail order. You're gonna get ripped off. And that put this fear of God into me, where I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell I'm ever gonna mail somebody some money order and hope some stranger with a PO box where he can cash it and I can never find him. And even if I could find him, for whatever the money would have been worth, right? It's not like I'm going to jump on a plane then and try to find the guy, fly down to like California, San Mateo, for instance, or anywhere else in the United States, and try to get my money back, whatever. Right. So, I was too scared of getting ripped off. So long story short, I just never even attempted it. So there you have it. And that's it. So, but I hope that satisfies your answer, Larry. I appreciate the question. Now, let's move to the next one. And I always love this one.
I just reached out to the owner of this a couple weeks ago. Yeah,
you reached out. You mean you reached out to Paul to try to get it off him?
I just acquired page 2 from this issue, which was the first appearance of a random Hulk character, which no one remember, but I love this. This is a great brooding Hulk page. I love it.
Yep. Classic, right in that sweet spot again. This is it's a great one.
There's Paul. I was waiting for you, Paul. I had to put one up from your collection for sure. There you go. Yeah,
great one, Paul.
Paul,
great one.
Paul, call me.
Yeah, always. This was always one of my favorites, also because of that perfect sweet spot era of Sal. The fact that it's almost like one of those Marvel Universe style sort of straight ahead shot, angry coming at you. Just and I thought even the Esposito inks, which I've never been some huge Esposito fan by any means, but
they could be hit or miss.
I was going to say the same thing, Ruben. This is like Esposito, could definitely be a hit or miss, but he definitely hit on this one. This is really good. It's true to Sal's pencils really, really well.
Yep.
Yeah, it was always literally like one of my favorites, so it was cool and Paul and I have become very, very good, very close friends over the years. So it's cool knowing that, all these years later, somebody you were really close to, it's in your collection. So it just feels good,
I did buy a splash from Paul at one point, and I was wondering if I'm going to see it here, but I'm not sure.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, We'll see. All right, let's move on to the next one. We're going to jump ahead back into the modern era, an artist we've seen already, but God, I love this. And I hope this one shows you more of what I mean by the dynamic.
Oh,
figure.
yeah. Right.
Oh, another Garney. Yeah. I've passed on many Garney pages I should have bought. There was
this was for sale a couple years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I know I saw this somewhere.
Oh my God. I have not seen this, just like a lot of them. I have not seen this since I got rid of it. So
Yeah, it
I
was
think
up
the
on
DPS
chat.
vacuum swooped down and got a Garni that I was looking at too. But yeah, these are great pages.
Yeah.
So well done. Dan Green is so good.
Yeah.
oh,
I love
he's
it.
so excellent on him on this series in particular.
Yeah, he's so good.
You know, very good, very good. Okay, so I'm going to move on to another one. So again, we can play catch up here, and still trying to hit that 2-hour mark. That's a sweet spot I wanted to aim for. For all you guys wondering why I keep saying I'm trying to catch up, and we're staying in the modern era to another modern era artist that I have always loved.
Oh, Lee Weeks.
Ooh.
I love Lee Weeks. Such a classic artist still.
Yeah. Lee is in my top 10 for sure. And it helps too that he's just an amazing human being. Super
And knows
nice
lots
guy.
of magic tricks.
He'll do magic tricks at a show if you ask. But yeah, his art has always been good. I mean, everything I've ever seen him draw, and from early to today. I don't have a cover. I would love to have a Lee Weeks cover. They've eluded me, mostly because I didn't get one early, but I do have a couple pages from this issue. It's amazing. This is really good. Looking at those lines.
I got another early Lee Weeks cover, and this was back in the day when I got it directly from him, tracked him down somehow, and sent him a check in the mail, and he sent me the cover back. He's such a nice guy, and
he
artwork.
is.
Yes, definitely. Definitely a wonderful human being for sure.
Yep.
Who owns this one? I can't see. There's a comment over it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Hold on.
That's all right.
Hold on. Let me get that
Oh,
on.
Nick Catratis owns this. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I got to say, guys, I'm actually really surprised that neither of you mentioned one of my main reasons for loving it, aside from the fact that I love Lee Weeks, is the fact that it's a transformation cover.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot going on this piece. It's really, really good, especially the line work is just so good.
And that was written by Byrne, right? Because there was that whole thing where Marvel was trying to redo the Hulk's origin with the scrolls were involved. They're trying to do this.
Yes, you're right. It was Byrne. Yeah.
Didn't go over well, so they just kind of ignored that. But
yeah,
with Lee Weeks art, I mean, I just love looking at it.
That's Lee's covers is another example of Steve getting it early. There's a good story about that and his ability to dig very well. But yeah, it's one of those stories I hear from collectors, before I got into it, just makes your jaw drop. And why was I buying comics and figures and stuff?
Cool. All right. So we're going to stay in the modern era with the next piece. An artist who in the modern era is really, really well followed, collected, and loved today. But this is more of an earlier piece from him. And here we go.
Oh, well, I'll let Dave talk right now.
I love Ed. Ed's top 5 easy. I think about my favorite Hulk artists all the time. But yeah, this is the first time he drew. There's the 2 issues that Ed drew the Hulk. This is the first times that he did it. I've managed to track down, I don't know, 4 or 5 pages from these 2 issues. But yeah, it's I love them. I haven't seen this cover though. I'm going to hit you up for the scan, Ruben, after the show. I would love to
no worries.
Look at this really, really close to look at those lines. But yeah, I have a few pages from this arc, and then I have a trade paperback, the Transformation trade paperback, where it's an homage to Hulk issue 1 that Ed did. It was from about around this same era, and it's just it's a slight difference, especially you can see it in the face. His style changed a little bit by the time.
It's still Ed though. You can still see
his style. Like you can tell that it's like if you're already familiar for years with his work, you look back at this and you're like, oh, you see where the current style initially started and ultimately evolved to, right?
Yeah.
But quite different, yet you could still see the evolution, is what I'm saying.
Man, this is one I would love to have. And
I've never seen this cover for sure.
Yeah, I was thrilled when I actually got the the trade paperback cover from Albert. Was thrilled to see that show up and be able to pick that up. But yeah, I love the early stuff, and I actually loved Ed's Superman. Early was my first, really falling in love with his artwork was his stuff on Superman. I think what he evolved to for Hulk was a little bit, more to my taste, but his Superman right out of the gate was, it's one of the things that kind of brought me back in. I
Yeah.
kind of reading on the periphery at the time, but when I saw that, it just blew me away.
Yeah. And I just want to, sorry to interrupt. I just needed to say too, real quick that, so a lot of people who know me well, they know I've said it many times. I've always been more of a realist. So I'm much more into realistically styled artists and never really got into the cartoonier guys. But boy, over the years that there's exceptions to every rule, right? And Ed McGuinness is one of those guys one of the first guys whose very cartoonier, style really just hit a nerve with me, and yeah,
I agree.
love it.
I agree with you. He really goes past the boundaries of, and a lot of the guys that do that, it becomes very kind of cartoonish, and not as appealing. But I couldn't agree with you more. It just speaks to me. Love to see all the work he's doing. I actually have a piece coming from, or I've gotten a piece recently from him that I'm real happy with as well.
Cool. Good. Looking forward to see it. Do you have the tendency to put it away for a while before you post new purchases? Because I've always done that.
I would say I tend to do that. Sometimes I'll get something and post it right away. But sometimes I do, kind of get it, enjoy it for a while. Like especially like a lot of the stuff on my CAF page is, doesn't have really good scans. So I try to maybe think about getting a better scan first. But yeah, sometimes I do. And, I think Dino's talked about this in the way that strikes with me the most is sometimes you kind of want to savor it, but you kind of want to release it, over time. And like, if you go through a period where you're not collecting, you still got stuff to share if you're not buying a lot. I don't have a real good answer for that, but to answer your question, yes, I do sometimes hold on to stuff before I put it out. Not like Jason D, right? Jason says all the time, he puts it out as soon as he gets it. Everybody's got different style and how they collect. But yeah, I don't know, Steve, I think you might put stuff out a little bit quicker.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of similar to Dave, because I've been putting stuff up recently, and some of it I just got, and some of it I got honestly 8-9 years ago. So
yeah. And you know what? I having spoken to so many people over the years, I really have come to find that there's quite a lot of collectors that do that. Some like there's all kinds, right? Like, so there's guys who put everything as soon as they buy it, they put it up. But there's a lot of collectors I found that some of the stuff they'll put up right after they buy it, and some of the stuff they keep for years and put it up later on,
Yep.
Yeah. So,
yep.
All right, cool. Let's move on to the next one. And I got to say before I show it, oh God, one of my all-time favorite splashes. Probably, I always felt this was tied with number one as my number one favorite splash with another one, but it always kind of felt like this was the 1B as opposed to 1 and 2. And let me just.
Are we going to see both of those? Are we going to see them both?
Let's find out what happens.
Okay. All right.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah. So I know you want us to keep talking, but this one makes me speechless, Ruben.
Yes.
Yeah, I know a lot about this one, and it's I know the current owner. I know Jay very well. He's not like a super active collector, but he also chases 227 very hard. And I actually talked to him many times over the phone as he was trying to bring this page down. This page was on CAF for years and years and years, and
Right.
Jay tried to get it years and years and years. And it took a little bit of an interesting, tactic, but he eventually got it down. And it was probably the page that went to a friend that I that I was the most jealous or envious of. This is the splash from my Holy Grail issue.
Yeah, I know. I
yeah,
know.
I
this
think
is
I,
it.
I think Dave actually asked Jay to be in his will just in case.
Yeah,
I would
we're-
not be surprised. That would not surprise me at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
I told him, obviously. I said, hey, I know you're not going to cut this loose, and I'm not going to insult you by asking you to sell it to me. But
Yeah,
please just let.
if I may interject for a sec, for me, what I found as I was checking piece by piece, if these things were on CAF, the thing I have found and find still oddball, I guess is the word, about finding this piece on CAF, is that for the most part, the ones that I did find on CAF, I knew the people who owned them, but I got to tell you, I have no idea who the hell JL is. I don't think I've ever heard of this guy before.
He's not a big art collector. He's a big Sal fan. He does like Ed. He went
Okay.
through a phase where he was collecting, semi-actively, and we talked a lot when he was. We don't talk nearly as much as more these days. I don't think he's chasing real hard,
Yeah.
but he's a big Hulk fan,
Cool.
just as big a Hulk fan as Steve or I. I don't think he's nearly as an active collector as we are, but
Right.
he's every bit the fan of the character, and he's in our age group, so he's going back to that same late 70s sweet spot Hulk TV
Yeah.
show.
I mean, you got the Hulk, you got Bruce Banner. I mean, it's a great image. And Jansen, you can tell Jansen's flavor. They just really add a little bit of different, different style to Sal's artwork.
Yeah, I've always loved Klaus's organic touch, the feel that he gives with his inks, and I always thought he did great on Sal. So that's just, and of course the whole just the design, right? The whole idea of the Hulk and his alter ego being picked up, like that, about to pound them into Kingdom. I mean, it's so powerful, right?
I mean, can you imagine? I mean, that was my first issue. Can you imagine? Like, that's the first issue that you pull off the spinner rack and read. I mean, I was that, and Iron Man 116, which was another great, combination of art and story. I just I was hooked. I was hooked.
Well, going in from that one to the next one, then I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody thinks about this one, because I would say probably that this was always the one that just loved it the best. And as much as I loved and still love Klaus's inks, I still prefer this look of inks over Sal's pencils. And here it is.
I know who the inker is, I think.
Oh, look at
that. So this is 1A, Ruben?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear that, my friend. Because this is, I mean, I can share this one if you want, but you can leave that up, or I can share. I've got the page sitting right next to me.
If you got it next to you, sure.
Yeah. I had a feeling you'd see this one.
And I missed that. Oh man, I missed that so much.
It's such a good page. Cool. I mean, look at that Zipatone in the rock.
Yeah, I know.
It's,
and I'm a zip lover, so yeah. I mean,
and then you've got the favorite part there, where he's being called a monster. You got that monster part of it, and it just, I mean, as a kid, I read this, and I mean, I was young enough that you're hanging on it, and it's like, no, Hulk, don't kill her, everybody's gonna, it's gonna be true what everybody says, and so this was like this was my second issue, right? So the 227, and then led into this issue. This one. I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. Is this page was on Comic Link, and I went for it, and I had it in my sights, and I bid at the last minute more than double what it was going for, and this was early on in collecting kind of bigger stuff, and I put what I thought was, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to get this, and
tell me where though, Dave. Where was this?
Comic Link.
Oh, Comic Link. Okay.
Yeah, and I thought I would get it, and I didn't even think that my bid wouldn't win. I thought I'm more than doubling where it is in the last minute. And, this just shows how naive I was to kind of how things worked. And I didn't get it. I lost it. I was, and then I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm thinking to myself, what the heck? I would have gone higher, when I thought about it, but I didn't. I was just kind of a rookie at that. And so I reached out to Comic Link multiple times over the next year or two, and what's his name, Jason, that works over there.
Yeah, there was a
yeah. We reached out to him and said, hey, I'd like it, and hey, I asked the owner, he's not looking to sell, and then I'd say, okay, I want it. He's like, we'll make an offer. I made an offer. No, he's not looking to sell. Made another offer. Eventually, it got to a point where he said, well, the owner's ready to talk about it, and back and forth, and finally, I got it, and I to this day don't know who it was. I have my idea. I have a sneaking suspicion I knew who I was communicating with through Comic Link, but I didn't care. I was just happy to get it. It's one of my absolute favorite splashes from the run as well.
Cool.
And that was my first big page. So yeah, that one means a lot to me.
That's an incredible splash too, man. That's a key point, man. That's
I just wanted to let me see somebody I wanted to highlight for. Oh yeah, Nick. Can you clarify why poor Bob? Because Bob is the one. The Bob splash is the one who I said ended up as my favorite one. Why poor Bob? I'm not sure I understand the reference, but let me know. And what's that? Okay, hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay, and I also will. Oh man, I'm finally starting to catch up. We're gonna go a little bit over 2 hours. Sorry, guys. Just to quickly say, Will, I don't know if you remember, but so way back in the day, Will contacted me privately, and he offered me to my knowledge, from what I remember, the only single double page splash
223
certainly that existed from the Sal run, like 200 up or whatever it was.
223.
Was that the one? Yeah.
Yeah.
He offered it to me, and I actually passed on it.
What?
So
it's a great splash. It's a great DPS.
And I don't okay, cool. Thanks, Nick. So at the time I said, like, look, all the little details matter to me. When the Hulk is drawn, leaping, hopping, jumping, I actually care about how they draw the arc of the leaps. Okay. And there was something about that, and the pose of how Sal drew the pose of his legs. I can't even explain it to you, but it bugged me. As cool as it is, it's not like it wasn't cool. I recognized that it was cool, but it was just something bugged me about it. And although in that time period I did like most of Rubenstein's inks, something bugged me about Rubenstein's inks on that, and so I passed on it. And I remember Will, when I told him about the arc of the bunny hops, he was like, "What are you talking about?" Right? And he's like, "You're gonna pass on it because of that?" And I'm like, yeah,
Ruben, if we did an episode on top 10 worst reasons not to buy a page, you've made it easily.
Bunny number one is bunny.
I say that tongue in cheek, but I mean, I get it. Sometimes there's just stuff about art that bothers you. And sometimes something that just bothers the heck out of somebody else doesn't even notice it, right? It's just art's subjective. You can't, there's no right or wrong, but on this one, I gotta think you were wrong on that. But that's my opinion,
And with that being said, let's move on to the next one, shall we? Now that I've embarrassed myself enough. Okay. All right.
We all make terrible decisions. That's part of the hobby.
Exactly. Whatever. Yeah. What are you gonna do? All right. So here we have this.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh, wow. Ooh, a Larkin cover.
Yeah.
I was always a big fan of his painted cover. He was the first cover painter that sort of caught my attention a little bit before Joe Jusko's work caught my attention.
Yeah.
So I always had a love for his work.
I love Bob Larkin. His poster, his Hulk poster, has inspired a whole theme in my collection, 30-some pieces, based on that single piece of art. It's the piece you let off with at the opening of your show. But yeah, I love Larkin stuff.
So this is interesting because you don't even see the Hulk's face. So what drew you to this page?
Okay, so I was just going to say something that ties into that. So I'm glad you brought it up, because so this is an example. See, when I showed this to a friend of mine As I was mentioning before privately with you guys, I did a little test run, right, to make sure that the software was running correctly. And I showed it to him and I told him, I said, back in the day, this is a kind of cover that people, much like you just mentioned, people would have said, okay, like the majority of them would have said, oh, I mean, yeah, it's really bright. The colors are beautiful, but like, this is a crap cover because his back is to you and you only really see the villain. That was the mentality across the board for most people back in the day. There was so many less collectors back then. So this type of a cover, if it came up, it was considered, oh, crap. It's the kind of thing where most people will look at it and they'd be like, yeah, okay, whatever. It's okay. But I'll wait for the next one to come up and get a better one.
So are you saying the supply and demand curve was different back then? That like you could pass on this and
yeah, absolutely,
because confident that something better would come up.
Exactly. Like if you wanted a rampaging Hulk cover, you knew that there was a good likelihood that in the not too distant future, another one would come out. And for most people in their most collectors' mentality, it's almost any cover is going to be better if the hero's back is not turned to you.
Yes.
So, that's so basically it, right? But I was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I was still very attracted to, the whole layout of it, and the colors were just spectacular and
painted. You got to, appreciate that for what it is.
Yeah, no, exactly. And back in those days. Oh, but speaking of back in those days, another thing to mention is that back in those days, oh my God, like because of the sort of historical nature of the industry being black and white pen and ink artwork. In those days, most people, including myself, when these painted covers came up, we all looked down on them. It was instantaneously that you look down on it. It was automatically subpar to getting a black and white cover, simply because that was the norm and colored stuff wasn't. People could appreciate it, but it wasn't the norm, right? So and not to mention the other mentality, the other thing people back in those days sort of always harped upon was, well, it's not from the Hulk series, it's from the magazine, which isn't really a comic, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying, right?
I definitely remember that. Oh, yeah. That it was just slightly less desirable, if you will, right? But I think when I found it, the art, because it was black and white, I really enjoyed it. That's why I bought the page I did from the issue. Was it 9 or 10? I can't remember.
Right. Just let me take this moment, everybody. I should have said this a long time ago. I'm a rookie. Forgive me. I should have said this at the beginning of the show. For those of you still watching, there's only a few, like 3 pieces left. But don't. As soon as I pop up that last piece, don't just look at it and take off, because there's a special announcement I gotta make. And so please wait until I make not only show the piece but say our goodbyes. And once we say our goodbyes, I'm gonna make a very special announcement. And so you're going to want to stick around for that. Okay. So please, there's only 3 more pieces left anyways. And if we're done with this one.
Yep.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's move over to the next piece, jumping up more into the more modern era. And we've got this one.
Oh man. Another Keown
cover. Are you kidding me? Come on,
man. I know I've seen this one is on CAF, right? Is it on CAF?
It says unknown. So
no, it's not. It's not on CAF.
I know. Man.
I loved this story arc. These stories through this is so good. I loved Super Skrull. I mean, you talk about visually interesting character. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that as far as all the things he's got going on. And this is just extremely well laid out. I'm curious what's going on with that background. Is that duotone or
it's done on a duo shade board?
Yeah.
But unlike a lot of works that were done on duo shade, most of the time with duo shade, what would happen is the artist would pencil it, the inker would come in and ink it, then the publisher would make a photo, or not the publisher, usually the inker would make a photocopy of the pencil and inks on a separate board, and they would do the duo shade on that photocopy. So there's 2 versions, and usually it's pen and ink on one board with no duo shade, and on the second version, it's a photocopy of the line art, and the only original art is the duo shade ink wash.
Yep.
But in this case, the duo shade and the black and white art are on the same board.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
McLeod was he's gone on record of he did a lot of experimentation with the duo back then, and
Yep.
There's an article in a magazine somewhere around where he talks about his process. I think because he got so many questions about it. So yeah, it's a stunning piece.
There's a Keogh and Holt cover up on Heritage right now.
Oh yeah, I would like to. I'm curious to see what those go for, because I haven't seen one in quite some time. So
yeah, the last one was that big one on Comic Link, that went for just under 6 figures.
Yep.
Oh, that's right, exactly. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I actually forgot about that one. But yeah, so we do have a somewhat modern example.
Yeah, there's a good comp out there.
The good comp.
It's forever ago in today's market, right? It's because
yeah, of course.
2 weeks ago, it was forever ago in the current market.
Yeah. So, all right. Last 2 covers, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. I really, really appreciate it. You guys are going to be able to go to bed very, very soon. Here's the second to last one of my all-time favorites from one of my all-time favorite parts of the Sal run.
Oh, I love the Constrictor storyline. I love that. That's a great cover too.
Is that the first Constrictor? Is it? Yeah, that's the
one. I love this.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
Wow.
First Constrictor,
Ernie Chan was so good. I mean, he was so good. I mean, this is over Buckler, but he was so good over Sal too.
They were a great combo.
Such a great. I love those lines.
Love the Constrictor character. I would get comics just because the Constrictor was in it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That is so good.
Yeah, this one I'm really jealous about. Oof, really.
Yeah,
jealous.
a little story. So when I was collecting, and of course in my my mental want list, this was, as I said, because of the Chan work on the interiors. This was a part of the run. It was one of my all-time favorites, right? And so when I was collecting and focusing on covers and splashes, absolutely one of my absolute wants was going to have to be one of the Chan inked covers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, they were so hard to come by, so rare. This is the first one that ever turned up. And so at first I was like, ooh, technicality, Buckler pencils. But ultimately I was like, I don't give a shit. I mean, the Ernie Chan inks are so strong, it still looks just like all the covers he did by himself anyways. You know what I mean?
He did some great cover work, pencils and inks. I love the By Beast issues that he did, were just visually stunning.
Ernie was a great inker for Sal and his brother. He did a great job on both brothers. But this is one I'm really jealous about, this cover.
Yeah,
and like Marcus said, this one's got bricks on it, but you can't see them on the cover.
Yeah. Just real quick, guys. I just wanted to highlight Will. The previous piece, terrific cover and memories, i.e., a funny story about this one. Obviously, this is one of the drawbacks that I dislike about live chats, is that they don't have the technology to have the live chatters be able to type it in and let us hear the comment you guys make. But if you ever want to email the story to me, I'd love to hear it, bud. So cool. Okay, so let us move on. And guys, thanks again for sticking around. We're on our last piece. And once again, remember, wait until we finish saying our goodbyes and wait for my special announcement, okay? The last piece, another one of my favorite covers from that similar era.
Oh, man, you're going to kill me. Oh, that's
I know where this one is.
Yeah.
So that's like 228. That's my issue, right?
Yeah.
That's the one with
the splash.
The splash, and it's got Moonstone knocking Hulk through a brick wall.
You got Herb. I mean, coming back to the book again.
Yeah, this is This is so good. I
Yeah.
can't believe you had this one, Ruben. That's
Man.
amazing.
Well, I don't have
Yeah.
it anymore, so it's like, you know.
It just makes me think, where are all these covers at right now? Because you don't see any of them on calf. Where
Yeah.
are they at?
So let me address that a little bit, because I've already been on record, like in the promos that I've sent out, you know, for tonight's show, that, you know, one of the craziest mysteries, even more mysterious than who were going to be my mystery guest tonight, is the fact that, you know, you think about how long ago it was that I parted with this stuff, right? And okay, like I said, yes, I sold off a smaller chunk of the collection to one guy, but like I said, that was a dealer guy, so I believe he had to have sold it off, you know, at San Diego, wherever. But everything else went to individual collectors. So I'm like, how the hell is it possible? What are the odds that a bunch of collectors absorbed my collection, and all these years later, most of it still hasn't, none of these guys popped it up on calf?
So,
I
and the
think-
funny
What are
thing
the
is,
odds that that would happen?
well, the funny thing is, or go ahead, Dave.
Well, I think I would agree with you, Ruben, you know, at one time, but the thing I've come to learn and know is that most of the stuff doesn't go on calf. There's so much more. I think I had a misbelief that the most of the art, when I first started in this hobby and on calf, I had this kind of misconception. This was just an assumption that a good, you know, chunk of the art, most of it, you know, all the good stuff was on calf. And it's just not. It's calf just has such a tiny fraction of art that's actually owned. So I would say I'm more surprised it hasn't, because, you know, stuff that's not on calf, if somebody has it and somebody knows, it kind of gets out that, hey, that's out there, right? But it may not show up on calf. But it blows
Right.
me away at how little art that gets bought, especially like newer stuff that just
Right.
doesn't make it its way onto calf. It just blows me away.
And like, you know, a year and a half ago, when the market started really going more insane than it already was, you saw a lot of older collectors who weren't in the game anymore letting loose of some artwork to sell it, because they were going. So, but we really haven't seen any of your stuff being shaken loose at all in the last year.
Right. Which, like I said, yeah, I mean, that to me, I'm baffled by it all, because while in principle I agree with the point you made, Dave, the thing about it is, you got to remember. So today, yes, I agree. Like in the last few years, right? Like when this market has really gone from, like, let's say, constantly going up this way price wise, and suddenly in the last few years more like this way, I have kept telling friends, I go, did you notice one of the reasons I keep saying this hobby has legs for long ways to go? Because every single piece, no matter how expensive, no matter how amazing they are, no matter how much volume you see sell through at the auction houses, like you just said, most of it gets absorbed, and then you don't see it pop up onto cap, right? It's crazy. But to counter that point, back in the day, remember, this is like, I'm parting with the collection 2005 or so. It was a lot less people, and it wasn't the same. So how the hell is it that the guys from 2005 that were around and bought these things, how could it be possible that none of them decided, hey, I'll put it in my calf gallery? Like, it's just bizarre to me, you know?
You'd say what, a third of the stuff you sold you think has shown back up through calf at
Yeah,
one point or
maybe.
another?
Yeah, I think 2/3 may not have shown up again.
That's a lot of artwork, a lot of key artwork.
Yeah. You know, and Kevin here says, has anybody seen or know who owns the cover to Hulk '81? Kevin, the easy answer is no. But I can say, for whatever it's worth, that so a while back, I don't know, a year or two ago, people talk. I'm not going to mention names in this case, simply because in this day and age, a lot of hobbyists belong to different online, chat groups. And what a lot of these guys in these groups, I try to avoid them for this reason. What a lot of people in chat groups don't realize, even the private ones, is that it's not really private. I promise you that in every single chat group you think is private, there are people in those groups that belong to other groups that are talking behind your back, saying things that you think is private into the, to the people in the other group. And it's just this whole cross-pollination of people talking about each other, whatever. But the news came out that supposedly someone in the hobby, a prominent art rep, had been emailed by someone, hey, look at this, with a really crappy photograph, like eBay style circa 1997, and that it was the Hulk 181 cover. But a crappy enough quality picture that it made you think, like, could this really be real? Or again, with crappy pictures, even amateur eBay type artists can make a recreation look like it might be the original with with a crappy picture, a photograph, right?
Right.
So, but whatever. So that's the only thing I know, Kevin. Yeah, and so nobody knows, So yeah, that's
like Nick says. That question's been asked so many times over the years.
Yeah, exactly. And understandably, it's the most coveted cover in the entire hobby that has a realistic chance of being out there and popping up one day. We're not going to talk about the whole Marvel #1s and the action and detective and Batman #1s, whatever. Those are likely destroyed. Yeah. But 181, in my opinion, exists somewhere. Who the hell knows where it is? That's all I can say about that. But yeah, exactly, Rick. Bigfoot sighting, exactly. So that's it, guys. We've come to the end of the show. So guys, let me take a second, and again, stay tuned for the special announcement, everyone. But let me give you two gentlemen my thanks once again for showing up and doing this with me. It's been a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it. And let me give you guys a last second to say whatever you want to say to the crowd. And let me tell you that at some point later tonight or tomorrow, I will be popping in both Steve and Dave's the URLs to their CAFs and their websites and their all the any related links that they have. It'll be down in the comment section below. And the only reason I didn't do it before the show is simply because then you would have known who my mystery guests were. But having said that, guys, is there anything you would want to say or even promote whatever you guys got going on with websites or what have you?
I mean, for me, I just want to thanks again for inviting us, because
my pleasure.
I really enjoyed it. I mean, just because Dave and I, when we talk artwork, some of it's just the joy of seeing a piece of artwork that has never seen the light of day ever. Right. So it's just that seeing, like, honestly, the Constrictor page, that was just awesome seeing that page, because a big favorite issue for me, just to see the cover artwork was just amazing. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you, Comic Art Boston. Yeah. Love you, man.
So for me, I mean, again, Dave and I, we're always looking out for artwork, especially Sal. Always looking out for it.
Yeah, I'll say the same. Thank you, Ruben. This is a lot of fun.
My pleasure.
Anytime somebody reaches out and says, "Hey, do you want to talk about Hulk art?" The answer is always yes. And I want to echo what Steve said. And I think a lot of people think we say it kind of like half-hearted. I say this all the time to people. Most of it's online, and it's people I don't really know who they are. It's like, you can share a piece of art with me. You're not trying to sell it. You just want to share. I just love to see it, and I love to talk about it. I've made some really good friends in this hobby that have become personal friends just from talking about art. And I think, to the point of, there's a lot of art that's not out there, and some people don't want to put it online. I'm a vault. If anybody shares something to me and says, "Hey, I don't want it getting out there," it doesn't. But I just enjoy it. Yeah. And, I'll close with, I'm not going to promote anything, but I will say, if you have some Hulk art you want to share, if it's just to talk about, geek out about, if you want to sell something, reach out to Steve or I. We'd love to talk about it. Yeah. We really do. I look at hundreds of pieces for every piece I buy. And that's just the truth of it. Such a small percentage of what I view and look at makes it into my collection, but I enjoy every single piece, regardless if I end up with it or not.
I just appreciate looking at the artwork.
Yeah, I'm a fan of art. I'm a fan of the history of Marvel comics. So even seeing those scans, to me, it's like it's part of history, right? Seeing something differently from how it was published, seeing those differences is always fascinating to me. So I encourage you, if you want to just talk about it, look me up. Happy to do it. Especially if we're going to shows. I think we need to figure out a way to coordinate all these online conversations and stuff, figure out a way to do this in person at shows, because the shows are starting to open up again. I'm going down to Heroes. Anybody's just going down to Heroes, Steve and I will be there. Email me on CAF if you have my website. If we're friends on Facebook, reach out.
Good for you, Dave. I only I don't know 3-4 days ago canceled my reservations to Heroes. Look, I'm gonna miss it for sure. I'm at that point in my life where I'm much more cautious. I'm the kind of guy who during the winters, I very easily catch colds. And it's not that a cold is that bad, but when I catch colds and the cold goes away like 10 days later, I still have this lingering cough that will stay with me anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months. And I can't stand it. And I'm just like, I don't want to get COVID.
You want to avoid the con crud too.
Sorry, the what?
The con crud.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. So I just want to play it safe, and hopefully at a future. Although having said that, I am still scheduled to be, I guess, a month later in a terrific con in Connecticut. So hopefully I will be at that one. But
our paths will cross at some point, Ruben.
Yeah, for sure.
I know.
And there's always next year Heroes too. So
yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna take it. Yeah, exactly. Like sort of a month at a time and see how
it goes. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So, okay, guys, and with that, let me just ask you, please. I'm gonna close out the show, and Steve, Dave, I'm gonna kick you out to the green room, but please don't hang up. Stick around just so we can chat a little bit after we sign off.
Sure.
If you don't mind.
No problem.
Okay, sounds good. So I'll see you there in a couple of minutes. Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much again to all of you who showed up and always support me. I see that all the guys in the chats, a lot of you are longtime friends. Some of you are newer friends. And I appreciate all of you just the same. Thanks always just for your friendship and your support. It really means a lot to me, especially this deep into my collecting years, a quarter of a century. I can't believe I'm that old. It's amazing. And I'm at a loss for words. Honestly, when I think about all the amazing friends that I've made due to this hobby and that I still have to this day. So thank you once again. I do want to say just one thing, just before I put my special announcement out, that I plan to do more content as I had promised initially last year. But this time, like I said, because I'm handling it all by myself and I only have myself to rely upon, I can promise you that I intend to put out content on a far more regular basis, and at least semi-regularly. So I can promise that you're going to see me again very, very, very soon. And I guess you'll find out soon, word on what kind of content that'll be. And that's it. So on behalf of my two wonderful guests and myself, thanks again for hanging in this long as well. Appreciate you guys, and I hope to see you all very, very, very soon in the very near future. All right, peace.